We got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we'll have Negro imperialists.
This educational process is necessary, and it's the people that will cause the revolution, and it's the people that will cause the change in the country. It's simply the vanguard of the revolution, and we plan to teach the people the strategy and the necessary tools to liberate themselves.
Modern assessment from looking at the contradictions in revolutionary black nationalism. As it is said, the New African Revolutionary Nationalist understands that New Africa is a nation that must be freed. It is a nation that must have its own independence, its own infrastructure, its own collective work and responsibility, and must have its own self-determination to name itself and define its destiny. As we go per definition, New African Revolutionary Nationalism is the ideology of the New African National Liberation Revolution. The scientific and historical process of transforming from a domestic colonized nation within a nation, serving the interests of U.S. imperialism, as a source of cheap labor and market for its commodities. But it transformed into a national liberation movement, consciously representing its own interests as a nation struggling for national independence, state power, and socialism in every realm of people activity. Just as is mentioned, revolutionary black nationalism looked at itself as a nation within a nation, being held captive by that nation, but did not really seek to advance to make itself an independent nation. New African Revolutionary Nationalism is the doctrine of the New African Independence Movement, formulated out of the Malcolm X doctrine, establishing a nation where we bled the most and where we're more densely populated, in that glorious black belt from South Carolina all the way to Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia. This is a nation that is no longer saying it's held captive by a nation, but saying that it will be determined for independence, self-rule. When it says free the land is not an ask. It is not a baseless statement. It is an action. Revolutionary comrade. So as we see that revolutionary means one who is, revolutionary comrade. Revolutionary, as we see the word, is one who takes on and changes the paradigm. One who absolves the old way of doing things that does not affect change constructively and positively in this day and age. It seeks to transform for the better this day and age. And Comrade is one with the same goal, the same ambition. It is one who shares and works collectively on the same initiative, sharing the same like mind on a particular task, on a particular initiative, and looking to achieve the same goal. The revolutionary comrade is also one who has revolutionary love. They seek to uplift their comrades, to motivate, to be patient with them, but hold them to the same standards of self, looking to aid them in time of need, looking to aid them in time of peril, to make their comrades' problems their problems. They display a revolutionary patience for the task, understanding that we all have learning curves, understanding that we all have a time when things click and when things don't click. They keep that patience and aid the learning process through this patience. When we think of revolutionary comrade, we should think about the Shakur family. Many of those who weren't related by blood, but were related through their camaraderie, related by sharing the same struggle, shared relation through the same ideals, that if any one of them were captured, they would seek to find progressive ways of liberation, to make sure that one of their peoples were taken out of whatever situation that was putting them in bondage. Think of revolutionary comrade. You're thinking of one who does not have an individualist, twisted view of reality. These are those who eat off the same plate. These are those who sleep under the same homes. In time of need, even sleeping under the same tent. As their revolutionary comrades to those in the organization, a revolutionary comrade is also a comrade to the people, a servant to them, displaying patience with those who don't know revolutionary politics, displaying an undying love for our people who were stuck in positions, lifestyles that are destructive to themselves. They seek to implement change, whether through art, whether through music, film, community engagements. They have faith that one day their community will change for the better. That as they implement and they put these seeds, that time will come where these seeds take root, where they blossom in the minds of the people. And that someone amongst them will reflect, will believe, and will practice these liberating ideologies, this liberating lifestyle. A revolutionary comrade sticks closer than family. They understand that everything is initiative-based. They hold the same political line. And they do any and everything in their power to defend their brother, their sister, to defend their people. Whether it be mentally, physically, they make sure that they get the job done. And they do the task until it's fulfilled in its entirety. The revolutionary comrade is one who has undying love for the people.
Revolutionary comrade. When we think of a revolutionary comrade, I think of George Jackson running to that 20-foot wall just to get executed to save his friends that was on the yard during that riot. A revolutionary comrade understand there is no counter-revolutionary cannibalism in the public view, or counter-revolutionary cannibalism at all. A revolutionary comrade understands that his own comrade should not be participating in being a counter-revolutionary, doing counter-revolutionary things, which will make him a liberal, combating liberalism on your own, comrades, is what we should be doing to make sure that we don't fall victim to going towards a counter-revolutionary path, correcting, constructive criticism, teaching, educating, making sure we sharpen each other's sword and go towards the right path. That is a good comrade. A comrade with revolutionary principles that makes sure his comrade is on point. That's real love. That's real revolutionary love. A revolutionary comrade understands transfer culture, goal culture, cultural revolution within thyself. If he understands all these things within thyself, he also understands how important his comrade must have those same principles and ideology in order for them to be true revolutionary comrades.
The importance of infrastructure obviously is establishing those basic needs, establishing modes of being able to independently supply and meet demands of the community ourselves. So being able to support the initiatives and the ideas and the goals around establishing, the different forms of infrastructure, be it education, food, basic needs, housing, things like that. So I believe that we can only achieve setting up and achieving those initiatives of building infrastructure through having structure through our organizations. So being able to respond to initiatives, being able to respond to goals, being able to carry out the tasks that are at hand, and being able to do that in an order that has checks and balances. So the structure within an organization is important because it makes us reliant on one another, but in a very progressive way, in a way that we are keeping each other in check and keeping each other sharp and making sure that we are getting work done. So the structure will kind of identify if any of that is not being up to par. If the structure is strong and if it has its check and balances, we'll be able to kind of clearly identify if something or someone is not pulling their weight. The structure allows us to go back to the table and identify what's not being productive and make corrections and have us go back to the table and maybe move pieces around as needed. So structure allows for those conversation and those building blocks to occur so that we make sure that we keep moving forward. A lot of times structure can always identify outside elements as well that may be deterring the work or may be hindering the work. So structure can help us understand and identify the people or elements within that as well, in the way that we can kind of clearly see if something is not running smoothly. We can kind of clearly see if there's something that's inhibiting the work. Structure has a way of identifying that and keeping us on point with that. So I think the importance of having structure within an organization is really to keep the flow of things in a consistent manner. It kind of weeds out liberalism. It weeds out special circumstances for certain people, or, it kind of just sticks to what's been determined. And the way that we become to that determination is through lived experiences, through practice, through trying things out. So structure can be developed through our experiences and through what we've seen works and doesn't work. Checks and balances and the importance of that, especially within an organization or within some sort of mutual aid, or within a community that's building towards any sort of initiatives or building towards any sort of goals, is important because it's really safety. And it has to do with being able to protect one another because we know what the structure requires of us, and we know that how we'll be held accountable or what consequences are there if for some reason there is any sort of fallback, any backslide, or any harm. So checks and balances is very important within an organization so that we don't end up with exceptions to the rule or people that are above being reprimanded, or people that are so far high up in a hierarchy, so to speak, that they're untouchable, that they can't be corrected, and sometimes not even approached. So check and balances keeps an organization running in a way that keeps people not only strengthened in their positions, so that they're able to do the job that they're there for, use the skills that they have, but also so that when issues come about, we have some sort of practice, we have some sort of way of response to dealing with those. Whether it's something beneficial for the organization or if it's something detrimental. We have to get in the practice of practicing kind of our check and balances more. We need to be able to have modes of how we get to resolutions on things. And we only get there through practice. And that's the only way we kind of sharpen our checks and balances and be able to evaluate what's working and what's not, who's working and who's not. We can implement certain things and may determine later that that's not the best way. But we should have a process that enables us to be able to come back to the table and be able to evaluate that. That's the check and balance. So it just keeps things in an orderly way, in an orderly fashion. But it also identifies, I think, for people to be able to know their role, know what's expected of them. And if for any reason there's a slack, a backslide, or just inability to do that, there's a way to address that and make that correction with it so that we don't get into the habit of having contradictions, but having a correction to those contradictions. So we can be self-critical, we can say, I'm sorry, we can do all kinds of things. But if we don't have an action plan of what the correction is going to be for contradictions, then we're kind of just spinning in circles without having real balances and real checks that keep things moving smoothly towards having that resolution in place. So it's very important, I think, number one, for safety, but number two, for keeping an orderly fashion to how tasks and initiatives are achieved and completed, and any issues that come about within them can be resolved quickly as to not interfere with the work. Because anytime we run into things where we have an interference in the work, it stops the work, it halts the work, it deters the work, our checks and balances are off, and we need to go back and reevaluate how we're resolving things to an endpoint. So that's the importance of checks and balances.
Revolutionary ideology. Revolution, the word itself is talking about a paradigm. It's talking about advancement. It's also the means of, as Malcolm would say, revolution uproots and overturns everything in its path. An ideology, as you hear in the word ideal, an ology to study of. Revolutionary ideology is the indoctrination, the orientation, and the application of that which is stated, revolution. These tactics that seek to change the time that you're in, not just for your time, but it's also it's technically to make the generation after you, their life smooth sailing, their life better. Revolutionary ideology is that which comes to you, and as it enters into you, it changes your life. Revolutionary ideology is not something that is only done when you read a book. It's not done when you just go to an event or you speak to some people. Revolutionary ideology changes your whole being. It changes your mind. Revolutionary ideology, furthermore, educates you on the time that you're living in. It tells you the position of where you are, where you stand, what you're doing. And revolution evolves in stages. As you enter into this revolutionary ideology, whether it be social revolution, cultural revolution, these are the stages that this ideology upgrades you into. And this is the transformative quality. It's changing you yourself. As you yourself has made this change, you affect others to transfer this change, not forcefully, but those of like minds. And as this happens again, it is something that is practiced. It's just not words and soothsayings. It is something that is practiced. It is something that is studied.
Right. A revolutionary ideology, like the comrade just said, is an idea, a concept, a belief. It usually challenges the status quo, right? It challenges what the existing social or political or economic structure that is there. It advocates for self-determination. It advocates for fundamental change. It advocates for infrastructure. So a revolutionary ideology is moving to move the people towards a betterment of their community. So the revolutionary part of that, or revolution part of that, is that person or that vanguard that's going to assist to support that rapid and drastic change to replace that status quo. It is in contrast to reformist views. It's in contrast to fascist views. It's in contrast to oppression. So revolutionary ideology is meant to uplift the people and put us into a better position to lift oppression off of us. We know that a few of our elders, our mentors, and our ancestors have left us with, revolutionary ideology. Black Prince have left us each with pieces of revolutionary ideology that should be studied, that should be interpreted, and that should be applied to our communities. And I'll yield there.
Free the land. Without revolutionary ideology, it ushers in, once again, reactionaries in reactionary times, counter-revolutionaries, poverty pimps, and opportunists.